My brother stole all of the money out of my dad's bank account. This is a call that we actually get a lot when people call wanting to probate their mother or father's estate. And sometimes the brother or sister really did steal all of mom or dad's money. But a lot of times what we see the case is that mom or dad actually put that son or daughter as a joint tenant on their bank account, or maybe even made them a pay on death beneficiary of that bank account. And if your mom or dad did that, named your brother as the pay on death beneficiary of her bank account, well, when she died, that money goes to that brother. And it doesn't matter if your mother said all the time that that money was supposed to be shared, legal title to that money goes to your brother. And unfortunately, there's nothing you can do unless you can prove that there was some type of fraud or something malicious happened. But if your mom made that decision, it's your brother's money. Pay on death beneficiary versus a last will and testament. This is a question that actually, or an issue that comes up a lot during the probate process, where everybody knows that mom or dad had a bank account someplace, but unfortunately that bank account had a pay on death beneficiary. So where all of the brothers and sisters might have thought that they were going to get a share of mom's $100,000 bank account, if mom put Johnny as the pay on death beneficiary on that bank account, Johnny gets all that money. And then it's up to Johnny whether he actually wants to share it with you guys, but it does not become part of the probate process because it transfers outside of the probate, and that's up to Johnny, and there may actually be some tax implications if he does try to share it with you. Does everybody need a full-blown revocable living trust-centered estate plan? Well, the answer to that is no. And this actually comes up a lot because people believe that they might see a seminar on TV, or maybe somebody came and talked to their church and said, all of you need to have a revocable living trust. And I love revocable trusts, and I really do think they are an excellent estate planning tool. But if you are living on Social Security, paycheck to paycheck, do not own a house, do not own a car, have very little money in the bank account, I'm talking about just whatever's left over at the end of your utilities and grocery bills in the end of the month, then you probably do not need to spend the money on a revocable trust. But I will say you do need to have somebody named as your financial power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney, have a living will, and HIPAA authorization on who to look at your medical records. So just because you may not have an estate, you still want to protect numero uno, and that's you. Why does probate take so long? Well, the big reason is it's statutory. It's the law of whatever state you live in. Now, there are in some states expedited probates. In other words, you can get them done very quickly, usually about 2 to 3 months. But for the most part, a probate, if everything goes perfect, at least where we live, it comes out to exactly 4 months. But they never go perfectly. We're always having to wait on the sale of a house, getting bank accounts released, etc. So easily a probate lasts from 6 to 8 months, start to finish. And it's not because the executor is dragging their feet or not wanting to give you their money. It's because they have to follow the law and follow the time frames before the judge will actually give them the authority to make those distributions. Transfer on death deed for real estate can be a great estate planning tool, but it could also create problems on who you want to actually get your assets. So let's break that down really quickly. First, if you name your son or daughter as the transfer on death beneficiary for your house, then once you pass away, usually depending on your state, all your son or daughter has to do is take a death certificate, fill out the correct form, and that house is transferred legally into their name. Where can problems come up? Problems can come up if it does not say what happens if they die before you do. Maybe you don't want that property to go to your daughter-in-law or son-in-law. You want it to go to your grandchildren. So in that case, if you see that there could be an issue with that, then maybe a revocable living trust is a better option to transfer that property from yourself to whoever your heirs are when you pass away. Bank account pay on death beneficiaries always trump, they always win over a last will and testament. This comes up a lot where a mother or father has a bank account and they name one of their children as the pay on death beneficiary. And in their last will, they say something to the effect of, whatever's left in my bank account is split between my 3 children. Well, unfortunately, too bad. That last will and testament has no jurisdiction over that bank account because your mother has named somebody specifically to the bank on who they want that money to go to. So if that's what's happened, I'm sorry, but the last will and testament loses to a bank pay on death beneficiary. When is the right time to get an estate plan? Well, right now. My answer to that always surprises people because a lot of times young people will come into our office for maybe they're probating their parents' estate and they see how difficult the process is and they're just naturally ask, when should we come in for our estate plan? And the answer is today. Today we need to start your estate plan. You've seen what is happening in your mother or father's probate, right? If you have small children, who's going to raise them? Who's going to take care of the money for the person who's raising your children? There are a lot of different things that you need to think about, especially if you have a family. So the right time to get an estate plan is whatever stage of life you are in right now. And as you grow, your estate plan will grow with you. Never give your children your house during your lifetime, especially if you bought your house decades ago, or maybe you have a ton of equity in your house. If you give that house to your children now, in the eyes of the government, in the eyes of the IRS, that's going to be a transfer, and capital gains will be due on that transfer. Capital gains tax will be due. The better option is to give them that house after you've passed away, because if you do it that way, they will get what's called a stepped up basis. And the stepped up basis means they inherit the house at the value, the stepped up basis, on the date of your death. So if you bought that house in the 70s for $10,000 and it's worth $500,000 now, if you give it to them now, capital gains will have to be paid on the difference between the $10,000 that you bought it for and the $500,000 that it's worth now. If you give it to them after you have died, they inherit that property at the $500,000 value. Estate planning for young parents is probably, I would argue sometimes, more important than it is for their elderly parents to do an estate plan. And the reason for this is because a young couple with children has a lot of responsibility. They are raising a child, a human being, maybe more than one. And if you're a young parent, then you really need to put in your estate plan who you want to raise that child. And as a checks and balance, I always say put somebody else as the trustee of their money. That way you have a checks and balance, so the person who is raising them will get money from the person who's in charge of the money based on what's called a HEMS standard, health, education, maintenance, and support. So as they need money, this person will make sure that there is enough money, or will spread the money out so that there is enough money to raise this child from whatever age they are until they reach the age of 18 or 21. What happens when your mother passes away and within a few days of her passing away, your brother goes into the house and starts removing items from the house because they either want to sell them or they want to keep them for themselves? Either way, that's stealing, right? They shouldn't be going into that house. Once mom or dad passes away, then really all of their assets should be frozen immediately. And that includes locking up the house and really not letting anybody in, because unless there was a trust or specific directions on what to do, and it has to go through the probate court, really a judge is the only one who can give the executor the authority to dispose of, give away, or sell the personal items in the house. Now, I'll tell you, a lot of times what happens during a probate is the family will come to an agreement on what happens to the personal items. The key is that everything has to stay put, locked down, until the judge and the probate court get involved. If you have been living with somebody, they are your life partner, and you consider yourself married for all practical purposes, but just have never done it legally, you have not entered into a legal marriage contract, then you really, really need to have an estate plan, not only to protect who gets your assets, but what I think more importantly is who gets to make decisions on behalf of the other one. Because unfortunately what we see is when couples have a lifelong relationship and sometimes one family doesn't like the other person, and they will fight tooth and nail for what happens with doctors, with their money, etc. If you're in that situation, you have a life partner, get an estate plan and say exactly what you guys want to happen to each other, both financially and health-wise, so that both of you are protected if you ever become incapacitated.
I know I've thrown a lot at you today, so that's why we've prepared our free guide on estate planning. I'll put a link to it in the description below and in the comment section below that so that you can download it and get started in the right direction. And to help you out even more, watch this video up here and this video up here. If you enjoyed this video, then guys, please smash that subscribe button and click on the like button. And also click on that little bell so you'll get notified every time we post a new video. Have a great day and an awesome week. And as always, thanks for watching.